Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of our residency prep blog series with Dr. Alexa. Welcome, Dr. Alexa.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be back.
So last time we talked, you were in Budapest. So now that you're back in the States, do you miss being over there, and do you miss medical school life?
I do miss being over there. My cat and my boyfriend were both left behind, and I miss them dearly. It's so nice to have a pet that you can just cuddle, and not to mention the boyfriend. So I do miss them. So when I get back to Budapest, I'm starting a new life. I've graduated medical school and I get to start a new job treating patients, solving clinical cases, diagnosing, referring patients to consultants. I'm just so excited that it feels like once I get on that plane, I'm entering a whole new life, and I cannot wait.
And when is that? Is that just around the corner?
I'll be here right now. I'm in the south of the US, southern USA, doing a observership. I'm in an emergency department, and it's been really exciting. It's been really interesting to see what the culture of teaching is like here. And then I think I'll be flying back maybe the third week of August, going to a conference in Hungary, and then finally starting my new job September 1st.
Okay, that's awesome. Do you want to talk a little bit about your observership and just give us some details about what that's like, especially now that you are officially a medical school graduate and you're kind of, getting to see things from that insider's perspective?
So I had no idea what an observership would entail. I haven't done one before. All I did was actual rotations, and it is very different. It's very strange to be standing there as, a medical professional and not be allowed to touch the patients or to listen to the heart murmurs or to do anything that would be the thing that I've been training for. So it feels a little bit limiting to stand in the corner of the room when they're resuscitating a patient. That being said, everyone has been incredibly nice. They've been very helpful, answering my questions, trying to get me involved, even though I'm not able to do hands-on things. They've been trying to ask me clinical questions and answer whatever I was wondering about. So they've been great. It's a very strange feeling to be sidelined after having studied for so long. Not that I'm not grateful for the opportunity, of course, it's been wonderful, but just keep that in mind. If you are doing an observership, you might feel a little odd at first.
Sure. I think that's a really good point, that you're really ready to jump in at this point, especially because you've got that position waiting on September 1st. And I can imagine that it is difficult to not be able to really get your hands in the action and just jump in.
It is. And the program I'm at has a culture of teaching that is unparalleled to anything that I've seen before. I've been in very good teaching environments before, but here it's nearly every single person goes out of their way to involve the medical student. So even during a resuscitation, someone will be like, is there anyone who hasn't put in an IO line yet? And then the med student will raise his hand and rush over there, and they'll teach him step by step in the middle of a code how to do it. It's incredible.
Wow, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing those details. I want to ask a little bit too about where you're at on your journey. We know from the vlogs that you've been sharing with us that you have already completed your OET and your Step 2. So how does it feel to have those out of the way?
I don't know if there are words to describe the sense of joy that I'm feeling right now. Since I last made my video, I did receive my OET results back, and I did pass, which I'm very relieved about. Thank you. There's been some whispers on the internet that the writing section is the part that a lot of native speakers end up failing. So I was definitely nervous that I might have failed. I'm not a bad writer, but I might not be writing it in exactly the way they wanted. So I was a little nervous, and sure enough, the writing section was my lowest score out of all 4 sections, but I still passed, so I'm really happy. Step 2 is a whole nother story. Step 2 has been an uphill battle from basically day one, and I feel it's been hanging over my shoulder for the past 16, 18 months. And the fact that I don't have to think about it anymore is just such a freeing thought. I no longer have to try and study after a shift or before a shift or on the airplane flight over, So it's really wonderful. But for this, I haven't received my score yet. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes, probably the end of August.
Can you talk a little bit just about what that day was like, waking up the morning of the exam and driving to the exam and all of the kind of nitty-gritty details about the experience?
Sure. My journey with ECFMG has been a little troubling because I had trouble getting my permit to take the exam. So there was a little back and forth of, would I be able to take this exam? And if so, when? Would I take it now or 8 weeks from now? So as all of this was happening, my studying, which was already not all that effective, took kind of a hit. And I felt like I used my last few weeks to study for this exam very, very poorly. On top of that, I also drove all the way down here. That was a 14-hour drive, and started a new rotation or observership at a new location. I'm staying at an Airbnb. So all in all, a lot of the things surrounding this exam day were just not ideal. However, it almost allowed me to remove myself and say, all right, this is it. This is the day that I've been studying for. Sure, it wasn't the best studying. Sure, I was tired and, using my time inefficiently, but this was the best that I could do with what I had in me at the time. And today we're going to take this exam and it's going to be done no matter what happens. 9 hours from now, you're going to walk out of here and you're going to be free to move on with your life, to worry about ERAS, to start researching programs, to go to a conference, to really focus on your observership and not have to think about studying all the time, to just restart my life. So I went into the exam definitely worried. Of course, you're going to be stressed. But I also try to approach each new block. There are 8 hours of exam, right? So each block, I try to think of it as a fresh start. Doesn't matter how the other one felt. New start. We're going to try our best for this one. Then we'll take a little break. Yeah, I don't even know what else to say. It didn't feel like a great exam. It wasn't one of those ones where you walk out and you're like, yay, it's done. I probably did okay. I left there wondering, did I fail? Maybe I failed. Let's hope I didn't fail, but it's a possibility. Maybe I got a really good score. I have no idea.
So you left kind of with a very, very grateful that it's over, but very neutral in terms of what your result's going to be.
I would even say in the first, let's say 3 hours after the exam, I was just shell shocked. I didn't feel relief right away. I thought I would feel more relief. I thought I would be happy that no matter what happened, I was done. But I walked out of there and I have to say, I actually cried in my car. I sat there and I thought,
oh, goodness.
Yeah, it was because the 8 hours or 9 hours that you're in there in this very high stress situation. And then you walk out and you don't feel anything except, oh, well, I don't know what to think now.
Right.
But then as the next, What were you going to say?
Well, it's just it's a huge culmination of so much of your mental energy and focus, as you said, for 16, 18 months, thinking about this exam and getting through it. And then it's suddenly over, but there's no one, cheering for you at the end. There's no
exactly
to do. So then, I could see getting in your car and taking a deep breath and crying it out. Actually, that makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah. And then over the next couple of days, so it's now been 4 days since my exam, it's hit me in little waves of it's over, you're free, you can do whatever you want now. And each time it's a more freeing thought, and it's wonderful. That's all I can say. It's wonderful. And if you're still studying for step 2, it's going to be over soon. Everything comes to an end, and before you know it, you're going to be right where I am, happy, free, overjoyed. It'll be over.
Awesome. Thank you for the positive motivation for everybody who's listening who's still waiting to take their test, because there's certainly lots of people out there, really trying to fight with the deadlines and get their test taken so they can get that result back by the 29th, which is ideal. So I think that that motivation is important. Um, when you were talking about, what you were looking forward to moving on to, you mentioned program research and the ERAS application and your conference. Can you talk a little bit about specifically when it comes to the match application, where is your focus now directed?
So I took step 2 approximately 4 days ago, but who's counting, right? And it's now a chance for me to kind of look at what exactly I'm going to spend the rest of my next weeks doing. I was talking to Tiffany earlier, and she pointed out that it's a really good time to start to get the different aspects of my application ready in order to give people time to look it over. So, my goal right now is to get the 3 main components of my ERAS application kind of done before the end of August. And I'll go into each of these a little bit. So, when I say ERAS, in my head, I'm thinking of the actual ERAS platform. I haven't really had time to explore it yet, but that's the part where I'm going to put in all of my hobbies, all of my research things, different job experiences I had, and so on. So that's one aspect. Then the other aspect is the personal statement, which is super important, depending who you ask, but it is very important. And then the third aspect of the application is the actual program list, which I want to have assembled by the time September hits. So those are the 3 goals. Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit maybe about the personal statement in terms of what is your plan as far as sitting down and drafting it? Do you have an idea of kind of what you want to say, or are you really just kind of going to start with a blank slate and see how the writing progresses?
I saw all over Twitter, everyone was recommending that you should start early. So, in a moment of not wanting to study for step 2 months ago, I wrote a complete first draft of my personal statement from beginning to end, word count, everything, and I sent it to my mom and one of my friends. And they read it, they gave some feedback, but I just reread it a few days ago and I think it's terrible. So I'm probably going to scrap everything but the beginning and start fresh, or not completely fresh start, but just really rewrite it. Take out all the things that I don't think are relevant because I've changed, and the way that I'm approaching this has changed in the past few months, as weird as that may sound. So, for personal statement, it's a very difficult thing to know exactly what you want to put down and what you're going to say to all of these people. And for advice, I've been going to Twitter. Twitter has some very useful threads on what letter writers are looking for or what they dislike when they're reading all of these papers. But I'm also going to all different websites or YouTube just to see an idea of what people recommend and what are some of the do's and do nots of personal statement writing.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, to really kind of seek out as much advice as you can and recommendations in terms of what's being looked for, what you should and shouldn't do, because there is so much of it. It's best to, in my opinion, to take it all in, and then you've got to sort through it and decide at the end of the day, it's your personal statement. So you can take and leave the advice that you want. And I think another point you made that's really important is starting early, like you said. So weeks ago now, you've written a draft that you've come back to and you don't like it at all. Um, and I'm a writer by trade, so I know that to be very true. When you spend time away from something you've written and then you can come back with fresh eyes, it's a very interesting experience because it's almost as though someone else wrote it. When you give it a couple of days, or even better, a couple of weeks, you have an insight that you can't get if you're rushing and trying to finish it just within one sitting.
And this is so true. And all through high school, I was the type of person who, your teacher would say, you can't leave this for the last minute. And yet I did every time, left it for the last minute and wrote the 10-page essay overnight. And there, it wasn't nearly this important to have the insight. You submit the essay and sure, you get a grade, but that wasn't going to be a deciding factor in my future, the same way the personal statement plays a role in the application. So I think even though I've been a complete hypocrite and not done this all of my life, I do think this is one of those points where even if you didn't start early, start it today. Just make a rough draft, and then you still have almost 7 weeks before submission to kind of read it again with those new eyes that Tiffany was saying.
Yeah, I think that you make a good point that it is for a lot of people possible to sit down and write something in just several hours. So it's not always a matter of can you write it quickly? It's a matter of how's the quality going to be if you write it quickly and don't take the time to go back to it, because you don't have the time if you have procrastinated. And as you said, Alexa, this is an important document and it's going to play a role in the next several years of your life and where your career goes. So it's deserves the time and attention of starting now, like you said.
Absolutely. And then a final point on that. I think it is important to give the people who are going to be reading this over time to process it. Everyone is living their busy life. So whether it's your mom or your mentor or a resident friend, you can't send it to them and say, hey, submissions due in 2 days. Can you just give it a quick read through for me? No, you need to be able to give them time. And for me, as the featured applicant for Match a Resident, I have access to some of their other services, and one of them is this personal statement review, which is it's great. I can't wait to use it, but I also need to have a draft to send it to them, and then they need to have the time to get back to me. So that's definitely a major goal for August. I have, by my calculation, 21 days, but no, I do want to do this sooner rather than later because it doesn't hurt to get it started.
Yeah, that's yet another good point that you're bringing up is if you are planning on having friends or family or an outside service review your essay to help with editing. It's good to build in that extra time because you don't know how long it's going to take for people to give you feedback. Even even a professional company, it's not going to be a matter of just hours. It's usually a 24 to 48-hour turnaround time. So just all the more reason to encourage everybody who's listening to get started on your personal statement draft right away.
Absolutely. And it's not an if you're going to have someone read it over, it's a when. Everything that I've read has said that you absolutely want people to read it over. It doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter who, but you're going to want people to read this over.
Yes, it's definitely the type of document that you want a second set of eyes, if not more, to review for
Mhm,
you.
mhm.
What about the other supplemental documents like your letters of recommendation? Have you requested those yet?
So I'm very proud of myself because I did.
Good.
I did a rotation in May, and when I got the token a few weeks ago, I did reach out to the person who said they were going to write my standardized letter of evaluation, and I sent him the official request through ERAS. It took him 5 weeks to submit this. He's a wonderful, wonderful doctor. He always does what he says he's going to do. So I knew he would do it. And I didn't want to have to like push him and annoy him and say, hey, by the way, can you do this for me? So I wanted him to have the time to do this whenever it fitted him. And then the other day, completely out of the blue, I got an email from ERAS saying that my letter was uploaded. And I'm so happy that I did this early enough to give him the time to do it when he wasn't rushed or when I didn't have to annoy him. So that's another thing that you want to do.
Yeah, kind of speaking to all the same things that we were discussing about the personal statement for your letter writers. If you're waiting till the last minute and then you're rushing them, the letters are not going to turn out as strong as if they'd had the time, to relax and really think about it and submit. So another great piece of advice for everybody listening is to request now and not delay.
And what I also didn't know and I learned, and hopefully me learning this can help you, is that when they upload it, ERAS still needs to process it. And I didn't know that there was this processing time. And it can take up to 2 weeks. For me, it didn't, but it can take up to 2 weeks. So if you want your letter to be in on time, you have to submit it early enough to allow ERAS to process it. So then if we calculate backwards from September 29th, you see that you don't have that much of a large window for submitting these papers. You want to get it started right away.
Yeah, that's a really excellent tip that I'm imagining lots and lots of applicants are not aware of, that there could be up to 2 weeks processing time. That could cause a major delay.
Yep.
So last thing, what about program research? You said that you want to have that well underway. So how is that coming along for you?
So, a few weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago, emergency medicine, one of the national organizations had this little virtual residency fair, which was phenomenal. And in order to know which of the many, many, many residency program meet and greets to attend, I wanted to have a good idea of which ones are more IMG friendly and less IMG friendly. So even though I was still stressed about step two, I decided to take a few days and try to get started on assembling this program list for myself. So there are two things that I think I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to combine them and hopefully come out stronger at the end. So every year on Reddit, there's a list of what am I trying to say? So each specialty has a spreadsheet, and somebody on Reddit compiles all of these spreadsheets into one Reddit post, and they usually share this. So last year, I got the emergency medicine 2020-2021 residency program list, and I saved that for myself. And then this is very comprehensive. It's crowdsourced from all of the students, all of the applicants, and there are some downsides to it because it's crowdsourced, but overall, it gives a very, very good overview of all of the programs and tons of information about each program. So that's one thing that I'm using. That information was mostly compiled from Residency Explorer and Frida, and of course, personal experience. So people could edit it and they could update things. There was opinions written about different programs, or people who interviewed at different programs wrote some things. So it's great, but it's not perfect. So on the other side, I'm also going to be using Match a Residence program list. They have it's also divided by specialty. So I have access to the emergency medicine residency program list. And they also, how should I say this? So they have different things written about each program. Whereas let me just grab a drink of water.
Sure.
So the spreadsheet is very mechanical. It says like program list. This is a 3 or 4 year residency. This is how many spots they have. This is how long your shifts are going to be.
And
so
this
on
is
and
the
so
Reddit.
forth.
This is the Reddit list, right?
Yes, this is the Reddit list. So it's very mechanical, and it's got a lot of the information, like the nitty gritty things that you can find on the website, but it's going to take you hours and hours and hours to assemble it yourself. But the Match a Resident list, I'm actually going to pull it up right now, so I have it in front of me. They have much more, how should I say this, insider info into different programs. So Match a Residence program list is updated by them calling each program coordinator or program director and verifying different aspects of their information. And they actually write that into these little notes. And because Match a Resident is kind of aimed for IMGs, it's got this special focus on IMG related information that the Reddit spreadsheet does not have. So you can rank the programs by how well you might be matched with them based on your own scores. And since I don't have step 2 yet, this is not that good for me yet. But at the end of August, I'm really excited to see what my scores will kind of match me with, or which ones are the most IMG friendly ones that I seem like a good fit in. So those are the two things that I'm going to be using. Yeah. Do you have any other questions? I know there's so much to say about this.
There is. It's because it's such an involved process. I think I think there's one point of clarification that I'll offer, both just for you and then for anybody who's listening and starting their program research. Even if you only have your step 1 score available and you're thinking about a Match a Resident customized program list, the list that you receive is filtered based off of just your step 1 score, if that's all you have. So an example is just, let's say your step 1 score was a 230. If there are programs out there that have a cutoff of 235, then those programs are not going to be on your list. So when you get your step 2 score and you input that information, what will happen is it will further refine your list.
Mhm.
so that your list then is exclusively programs that you're compatible with based on all of your criteria. So I think that's the biggest difference between a lot of the other program lists out there that are comprehensive program lists that you then have to sort through and try to figure out which programs you're compatible with. Whereas with Match a Resident, we are filtering out for you any program that you're not compatible with. So you're kind of looking at the end result instead of having to figure it out.
Right. Do we have any more time, Tiffany? Because if we do, I pulled up one of the programs in front of me and I could just talk a little bit about what I'm seeing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, as Tiffany was saying, it does rank me based on my step one score. So I got a 230, which puts me into which how should I say, eliminates me from some of the very high reaching programs, but I do see 233 programs in front of me. So I just pulled up a random one. This is an HCA program in Texas, and the information here is very, very useful to IMGs, which I didn't realize before getting access to this list. So for instance, I'm a US IMG, so I don't have to worry about visas, but I know that there are a lot of people out there who do. And there's a little section here which talks about their visa policy. So this HCA, for instance, they don't sponsor visas and they don't accept visas. So a student or an applicant who needs a visa knows not to waste their time applying, or time and money applying to a program that simply doesn't sponsor visas. And I actually learned this last week, that the reason many programs don't sponsor visas is not because they don't want, that they wouldn't be open to IMGs in general. It's usually just a matter of funding, that they just can't get the funding in order to do the sponsoring, which sucks. It really, really sucks. But anyway, this program kind of helps you figure out which programs are not going to be sponsoring visas whatsoever. And so you don't have to waste your time applying to that. And then the other thing that I didn't know they had was the ECFMG certification, whether it's a requirement or a suggestion.
Sure.
So I know this is a big issue for a lot of people this year, and it might be an issue for me as well, that I might not have ECFMG certification by the time I apply, which limits my programs quite severely. But you can actually filter programs based on which ones need it and which ones don't, thus making your work a lot easier if you're not going to have ECFMG certification by the time applications roll around, which is also huge.
Yeah, I think that there's several filters that you can use on the customized list, but I think that that is easily one of the most important
I think so. Yeah, because nobody else cares about this except IMGs, right? So this is not information that you're going to find in a lot of the other crowdsourced programs. And,
right.
yeah.
And
I'm in awe.
well, thank you. That's we take that as a compliment, and that's that's really what we aim to do, is to truly help IMGs out there who don't have the time nor the financial resources to apply to programs that they're not compatible with.
Mhm.
And I do want to speak a little bit to the visa point, just to point out, if you are a visa requiring IMG, that would be information that you would input into your applicant criteria. So your customized list would not even include programs that did not sponsor visas. So it would, it's customized really to such a high extent. And that's how it saves you the time. So like, you're seeing programs that don't sponsor because you don't require one. But if I did require one, that program would not be on my list.
That makes sense. That's very true. And then they also have step 1 and step 2 cutoffs, which, it's up to you whether or not you want to apply to programs that you have a lower or higher step score than. But for instance, next to the step score, you can actually see little comments that were made by the people who updated this this entry. And for instance, for this HCA, they say, okay, the 220 is the cutoff for step 1, but based on historical records, they consider candidates with scores 5 points below their set requirement. So then I know, okay, so, I can apply here. I'm still potentially competitive here. It's okay.
Yes, I think the note bubbles are another really important aspect of the program cards, which is what you're looking at, because we gather a lot of information when we're having these phone calls with the program coordinators, and we don't skip any of it. We find a place to put it in there so that as an applicant, you have access to everything that we were able to find out.
Yeah. So overall, I think it's a very good program. One of the reasons that I'm still using the spreadsheet on the other side is because it organizes a bunch of the other things that are specific to emergency medicine, whether it's a community hospital or university hospital or a county hospital, how long our shifts are we allowed to moonlight? So it has all of this extra information, but it's also massive. It's 260 something programs. And this helps me kind of filter it down because I don't intend to apply to 260 plus programs. I hope to apply to anywhere between 120, 140. And this is a great starting point. So hopefully with the two of these, I can put together a normal program list by the end of August.
You know what? That's actually what we typically recommend, is that you use Match a Resident as a complement to a bigger list. And for some people, that could be Residency Explorer or Frida, or you've,
Mhm.
found this little gold mine on Reddit, because there is a lot of other additional information about programs, like you said, the shifts, and sometimes just about more of the atmosphere of the hospital and the community that the hospital is located in. So lots of things that might help you decide what program to apply to after you know what you're compatible with. So we think that's the first step is, okay, here's the 100 programs that my criteria are compatible with. And if I only want to apply to 75 of them, then you can use one of those other lists to look at the details of the program. But you're only looking at details of programs you're compatible with. So that's why we think that we're a smart starting point.
Agreed. And then the final point is that they also rate IMG friendliness based on low, medium, and high. I guess this number is based on how many people they currently have. Is that correct,
That
Tiffany?
is correct. Yes.
Okay. So, and then sometimes it says they don't currently have IMGs, but they have had IMGs in the past. So when I see this IMG friendliness score, and let's say it says medium, then I'll actually go on the program website and I'll creep on their residents a little bit and I'll see who's from where. Because I've noticed there is a little bit of a difference whether you're a Caribbean IMG or an IMG outside the Caribbean. Mostly because the Caribbean schools usually have rotations already in the US. So it's a little bit easier to get your foot in the door. But yeah, it's great because it gives me an idea of should I be even looking at their residence list to see who is an IMG and where are they from, or do they just not have any IMGs?
Right. That's another really great point. Just speaking to how you can kind of have things further and further refined down. And then once you know what you're looking at, you can go out to those secondary sources and, kind of start your own, as like you said, you're going to have your own list after using the different tools that you've got in your pocket. You'll have your very, very personalized list based on lots of different criteria.
Yes. And the more we talk about it, the more I'm realizing what an insane amount of work this is going to be. So also, this is something that I'm going to get started in the coming days and just try to find a system that works for me so that I don't lose my mind.
Yeah, I think just like with some of the other components that we talked about, people underestimate the time commitment necessary for program research, even when you are using really helpful tools. It's still time consuming. So another thing to put on the list of things to do right away.
Absolutely.
Well, do you have any other advice or anything else that you want to add to wrap up our interview today?
I think we talked about a lot of really useful things in this one. Not that the other ones weren't useful, but here we've gotten into the nitty gritty of what exactly applicants should be doing and what I should be doing in order to do my application and get it ready on time. The only thing I want to add is that if you are not on Med Twitter, I highly recommend that you make a professional Twitter account, not your own personal one that you've been using to, follow whatever. So like a more professional Twitter account, and just get out there and start following some of these residency programs because of COVID last year and COVID rearing its head again this year. I think a lot of people are still going down the virtual route. And this has kind of shown programs that they need to have a digital presence. And so for emergency medicine specifically, they are all over Twitter. They are very, very active. The programs are active on Twitter, program directors are active on Twitter, and they give phenomenal insight into what it is like to apply, whether you're an IMG or a non-IMG, what you should be doing, what you should not be doing. It's a gold mine. It takes time to kind of find whatever you're looking for, but whatever specialty you're interested in, do some basic searches. Things like internal medicine. For me, I'm doing emergency medicine, so my hashtag is EM bound, like you're an EM bound, emergency medicine bound applicant, and you will find so much information. So that's my advice to you for August. Start getting your application together and consider making a Twitter account.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your taking the time to update us on your journey so far. And we're going to look forward to the next vlog episode. I think that I'm especially eager to see where you're going to film. We've seen some really awesome scenery in your vlog episodes so far. So we look forward to the next time.
All right. Thank you so much. And sorry that that was a little bit long, but hopefully people will find it useful.
No, I think it's great. All right. Take care, Alexa.
Have a great day.
You too.